Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Leanne and today I'm going to show you how to make arm bracers for archery. The piece I'm going to make today was a commission for a customer. She wanted two asymmetrical bracers with organic branches and birds. I'm going to show you the whole process. First I'm going to make the pattern, cut it out, tool it, paint and afterwards finish with some hardware. Let's get started.
First I start working out my sketches. I look at the measurements that my customer has given me and I make the correct dimensions for the arm protection specifically for her arms. I also finish the wanted shape of the bracers. When I have finished the shape, I transfer it to a new piece of paper. I then sketch my design on this. My client requested an imprint of organic branches with birds, which run upwards from the wrist. Once I'm happy with the design of the print, I transfer it to transparent plastic. I use plasticizing plastic for this. This is reusable and does not deform after holding it over the wet leather. With a silver pen I trace the pattern onto the leather. I first cut out the leather with a rough border. I do this so that I can easily cut it out sharp on the tracing line without having a lot of excess leather. Once it's cut out, I'm going to bevel the edges. I do this so that the edges are rounded and I can later polish it smooth. In order to transfer the print into the leather via the plastic, the leather must first be wetted. This is called casting the leather. Here I wet with a sponge and let it soak in for a few minutes. If I notice during cutting and beveling that it's too dry, I wet it again with a sponge to be able to work the leather so the impressions stay in. I also use a compass tool to give the edges the same width all around. I lay the transfer plastic over the leather and make sure that it's straight and fits well. When placing, I make sure that the side I drew on with the marker is facing upwards and does not touch the leather, because this can give off pigment. With a pointed tool I trace this onto the leather. I don't press hard here, just going over it gives enough impression to give a line to cut with the swivel knife. Then it's time to cut the design out with the swivel knife. I go over all the lines of the drawing. Make sure that you don't cut too deep and that your swivel knife is sharp. I sharpen it by pulling it at a 45-degree angle over the back of a scrap piece of leather that has polishing compound applied to it. I do this a couple of times on both sides and repeat it when I feel the blade becoming duller. Here you can see both bracers cut with the swivel knife. If the leather is still wet enough that it accepts my impressions, I can start beveling. I go over all the lines to make certain parts seem higher than others. The birds are most to the foreground. Behind this are the branches and all the way to the back is the background. This is the deepest part. While beveling, I try to keep the tool at a 90-degree angle to the leather. Because this project is quite small, I sometimes have it slipping away. To prevent this, I put something heavy, in this case a pot of sand, on the leather so that it stays put when I move my beveler. I always make sure that I have a piece of leather in between so that the bottom of the pot does not make an impression on the leather. Another object you can use for this is a door stopper. Here you can see what a difference beveling makes. The imprints left by the beveler are still pretty rough right now, but this is solved with a spoon tool. I smooth the deeper laying edges by moving the little spoon over them. By means of friction, the strokes of the beveler are now made a lot smoother. I always like to smooth the edges with the polishing stick before inking. At this point, I do it with just water. When it's completely colored, I'll do it again with saddle soap. The edges are now a lot smoother and rounded. First I test the color I want to make on a scrap piece. Once I'm happy with it, I take a dauber and start coloring it. It is best to do this with circular movements to get as few streaks as possible. Looking back, I see I didn't do that with this project. I don't remember why I didn't in this case, but circular motion is the best. I also inked the edges of the work. My customer wanted the branches and birds to be darker than the background. With a brush I used the same ink to darken the tone in these areas. I repeat this several times until I am satisfied with the result. You can see what a difference it makes to darken the higher parts. The design comes out beautifully this way. As soon as the ink has dried, I make holes at the corners to attach the rings and hooks. I can now finish the work with a finishing coat. Because I still want to work with antique, I will first finish the work twice and let it dry for at least an hour in between layers. I'll apply this with a dauber. When the layer of finish has dried, I add antique. I apply this with a paper towel. I keep taking away more and more until I am satisfied with the amount of antique in the crevices. I let the antique dry overnight and the next day I'll add a third and final coat of finish. To give it a nice shine, I'll polish it with a microfiber cloth. As said before, I'm now going to polish the edges for the second time. I do this with saddle soap. With a brush and some water, I soften the soap and spread it on the edge. With a polishing stick I go over this by means of friction to make the edges smooth and shiny. This gives a nice finished and rounded effect. Now it's time to attach the rings and hook to the corners. With this machine I stamp it tightly in the leather. Now all I have to do is attach the elastics and then these braces are finished. As you can see, they provide the perfect protection to the forearms if you accidentally hit your arm with the bowstring during archery.
And that's how I make these custom arm bracers. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please take the time to like and subscribe to my channel. And comment down below on what you'd like to see me make next. Bye!